afternoon, good evening, good morning. How we all doing? Good day, probably, is the Australian proverb that we're going to be using for this podcast. My name is Bodhi. This is AceTrainer Australia, and I am joined for the very first episode of a very special new AceTrainer podcast by Alexander Bray
How's it going, guys?
and Paul Coletta.
How's it going?
Now, boys, it's fantastic of you to join me this evening, this beautiful Christmas Eve, actually, when we're recording this podcast. What I want to do before we get started, before we talk about what it is this podcast is going to detail for our listeners, I want you guys to introduce yourselves, how you got started in the Pokemon TCG, and just a little something you're looking forward to about this podcast. Alex, you first.
Yeah, hi guys. My name's Alexander Bray. I'm from Perth, Western Australia, and I've been playing the Pokemon trading card game since 2012, late 2012. I first got into the game. I finished high school and I'd started working, started university, but I was kind of bored. And I'd played Yu-Gi-Oh previously, but I got bored with that game as well. And I'd always play the video games, much like many other people who play the card game have. And I decided to pick it up with a friend of mine. And then the first major event I ever went to was Nationals 2013, where I beat fellow co-host Paul Coletta in Swiss ranks.
The only time.
And yeah, something that I'm looking forward to in this podcast is definitely sort of getting all the information from the previous week into one place to make it easier for everyone to sort of have access to. Not everyone knows what goes on in other countries, but that's going to be our job, and that's going to be our job to provide to you guys. So instead of having to scroll through just pages and pages of content on Burbank or Afonte, we'd be able to listen to this podcast every week and get your weekly dose of Pokemon TCG news here, whether it be Australian news or international news.
Well, thank you very much for that, Alex. Paul, I'd like to hear from you now. How did you get started, and what's something you're looking forward to about the podcast?
Yeah, thanks, Bodhi. So, I guess pretty fun way of starting. Shortly after high school, myself, um, I was just digging through a bunch of old stuff in the process of moving. Happened to find some old Pokemon cards that a close mate of mine and I we used to play with back when we were in school. And I said to him, hey, remember when we used to play these? And then natural curiosity took us to see if they still made the things. Turns out they did. Now, this was back in 2000 and it was like late 2010 that we were looking around. So I started, I guess, in the competitive scene around 2011, so early 2011, around the release of Call of Legends. And we found out that they actually did tournaments. So our first, I guess, major event would have been just a pre-release for the Call of Legends set. And then it snowballed from there into Battle Roads, which we now know as League Challenges, and Nationals as well. So our first big Nationals was 2011. And I've just sort of been playing since then. Managed to get to Worlds a few times as well, which has been great, along with both of you. You've both been to Worlds a few times as well, so it's been pretty exciting time. I guess the big thing I'm looking forward to, similar to what Alex was saying, getting that news out there, not just from an international source, but from an Australian source as well. So getting our names out there to sort of let people know what's going on down under as far as the tournament scene is going, and yeah, just sort of interacting with the community in a different way.
Cheers for that, Paul. My turn now. My name is Bodhi Cutler, guys. I am going to be one of the three hosts. I guess I'll be leading most of the discussion going forward. We're going to try and keep it as loose as possible. It's going to be more of a conversation. We want your guys' input. We want to be able to hear from everybody. I got started roughly around the same time that Paul did, actually, late 2010, early 2011, and it wasn't till the end of 2011 that I really became competitive in the card game. My first event was the Brisbane National Championships of that very same year. I went 3-3 in my very first Pokemon TCG event ever with one of the weirdest decks anyone has possibly ever played. From that point, I was really hooked. By that point, Dark Explorers, the fifth Black and White set, had come out, and
My first set as well.
I was just completely hooked from that point on, and it never slowed down. And here we are, we're multiple worlds competitors, and now we're hosting a podcast dedicated to the Pokemon trading card game Australian community.
Sort of the natural progression, isn't it?
It is. It really is the natural progression. There are hundreds of other people like us. I want to
Indeed.
I want to talk now about our very first topic today is the Australian International that has been announced. It was announced on the 22nd of
Yeah, boy.
We're very excited.
Oh
Um,
man, can't wait. Can you believe it? It's like our own little mini World Series down here in Australia. The amount of people who are going to be scared to death of drop bears, so should be very, very interesting.
we've already had a couple of messages from people talking about the wildlife and whether or not they should fear it. Thankfully, I don't think Melbourne is notorious for its snakes and spiders.
No, they're all up in Brisbane, I'd
Man.
say.
Oh my god.
Yeah, all up here in the dangerous part of the
I just
country.
thought that was the players.
Yeah, dangerous
Yeah, well, that's
players.
what we were talking about.
You gotta keep an arm's length from the players here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I think Melbourne, being the nice little city it is, should keep a lot of the international travellers nice and safe. They should feel pretty at home. And being a planned city as well, it'll be very easy for people to manoeuvre. So, looking forward to having people here and figuring out getting through Melbourne, exploring the local scenery.
I think it's also really good. You're gonna have I know a couple of local players in Perth are thinking about making the trip. Maybe guys that aren't necessarily going to do the tournament circuit this upcoming season and trying to gun for an invite. Especially when it's 350 points now. But I think this international challenge is really good because you get to stay in the country, but you still get to play against other players from all around the world. Because I know there's obviously going to be a lot of Asian players from Indonesia and Singapore. They're going to come down, and then there's still going to be a couple of Americans as well, and I think a couple of guys from the UK are going to come down as well. So it's going to be really good for people who may have never been to Worlds before are still going to be able to play against people from another country. You know, and one of the best things that I liked about going to Worlds was just making friends. You know, and I've got friends in the US and I've got friends in the UK as well now. I played against guys back over there, and now just local players from Melbourne or even other states are going to have that same opportunity as well, even though they're not going to be able to go to Worlds.
It really is such a fantastic experience, isn't it? All three of us here have been to Worlds at least once, and like you were talking about, Alex, I think the friendships that you pick up from all over the world is something that's almost unrivaled in any other facet of your life. You know, you're not going to go down to Woolworths and meet someone from America or Europe or Malaysia every single day, and of course you're not going to be in contact with them all over the world.
And I think it'll be really good. Just Alex, like what Alex was saying, have the new people starting this year. They might go to this really big event. They might not have been to any others before, and they'll get to see like firsthand what it's like to interact with that. Some of the greatest things about Worlds was getting to look at the local scenery. Meeting up with people. I know a few of our friends have done that where we've gone to different states in America after or before the tournament. Alex and I know, went to Anaheim back in the Worlds this year prior to the main event. Disneyland, indeed. That was a lot of fun. And I, off the top of my head, cannot actually think of something big in Melbourne. I blanking at the moment, but I'm sure there's something that'll be really cool there for people coming over the first time, and also experiencing the weather being the exact opposite as theirs.
If I can relate it to going to nationals, my first nationals in 2013, since these international challenges are going to be replacing nationals, so we won't actually have an Australian nationals this year. That's correct, isn't it, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that's the case.
So this tournament is now going to replace that, but it's still going to serve the same purpose. The first nationals I went to, when you win a couple, it's your first major tournament, and you win a couple of games, and it's just against other Australian players, but that's for me as just a very competitive person, and that's a large part why I started playing. I think these days, I'm still competitive, but I much rather go to a tournament to see, go to Queensland to see you, Bodhi, or go to Sydney to see you, Paul and Shane. But that first major tournament for a lot of these people, you play, you win a couple of games, and even when you go 3-3, like you said, Bodhi, you're still hooked. You still went, okay, I won 3 games, and I lost 3 games. I learned from my mistakes, but I definitely want to do that again because I know I can do better, and then I can be on the top of the table, And then, especially if you manage to beat players from other countries, I think that's going to be one of the main selling points as well. And I think it's really, really good to try and get more people playing the Pokemon trading card game, not so much just casually, but also competitively. Because more players means bigger tournaments, means bigger prize support.
Absolutely. I'm thinking, don't we have actually, as we've got some little teasers coming up as well, to prepare people, I suppose, for the upcoming big tournament. So I think we've got a few League Cups coming up in your states. Is that right, Bodhi?
Yes, there's going to be at least for now, these are the 2 that have been confirmed. There's going to be a League Cup in the second week of January in Brisbane. That's the weekend of the 14th of January. And then I believe the 28th of January is the Perth League Cup. Alex, is that right?
Yes.
Very exciting. So a League Cup, for those of you who aren't aware, is a city championships from previous years. If you were a competitor last season and you aren't quite familiar with the new format, a League Cup is just the renamed version of a city championship. So first place is going to net you 50 points and so on and so on. I believe prize support remains the same too, about 18 packs for first place, scaling down to 6 or so for the top 8. These are the first events of the year too that we will be getting top cuts as well. So we'll be able to see how decks perform in cut in Australia, and that's something that we haven't had yet. So collating data from league challenges always comes with a little bit of an asterisk because you haven't seen that person or those players perform out in top cut. What do you guys think we can look forward to or expect to see when league cups come around?
Well, oh yeah. Yeah, Evil Tile. Well, I mean, it's a big part of the metagame at the moment, and for anyone who's following the London International Tournament, I think Evil Tile Garbodor took up 12 of the 32 spots in the Day 2 Swiss, which is a huge amount. That is that. Well, when nearly half of your pool is the one deck, it's a clear sign that that deck is a very strong contender for best deck in format at that point in time. And we're actually going into that format with our League Cups as well. Since the new Sun and Moon set, I don't think it drops until February. I think it comes out February 3rd, and then it's not legal until later in February. So we'll have that metagame to go off of. But I mean, this is Australia. Our league challenges tend to come with some kooky decks. So I'm sure you two have seen it, some of your league challenges.
Oh God.
Absolutely.
It's so just like, here's a D20, I'll roll it. Oh, okay. I'll win with that today.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we saw Henry Brand win one of the league challenges with a Mega Scizor deck.
But then he cut another one with Regice Eradicate, like Garbodor. Yeah, or maybe it was Vileplume actually. It was Regice Eradicate, and it was either Garbodor or Vileplume.
I mean, I know I played a Wailord Celebi deck at the one of the Sydney LCs, so I mean, I didn't exactly do well with it. I'm just saying, like, that's the sort of shenanigans you can see in the league challenges. So, like you were saying, Bodhi, can come with a bit of an asterisk for many reasons. One of which being you might just see some unusual decks that people might not otherwise be daring to play at these bigger events.
I think it's going to get I don't want to say worse because it's putting a bit of a negative spin on it, but it's definitely to be expected more so now if more people are going to be playing because of the increased price support, especially for the international challenge. Like, no matter what, even if you spent well, for me it's going to be like $400 return for flights. It's probably not that expensive for you guys to go from Brisbane to Melbourne or Sydney to Melbourne, but there are some people that will pay that much money and then they'll still play a not necessarily meta deck, just because they want to and they think, oh, I'll just play this because I like it, and then they're the kind of decks that can just roll you in the first couple of rounds of Swiss. And if it's going to be well, actually, first of all, I think the turnout for the International Challenge will maybe be around 300 players.
This is something I
So
definitely wanted to talk about too, the expected turnout for the international event. Previous year for Australia, our nationals ended up with 161 Masters, which is the most Masters Australia has ever had for national championships, and it has continued to grow from 2011 when I first started, when most of us sort of first got our heads around the game. It's continued to grow every year since then. I was almost going to say I expect 400 players.
Wow.
how many were at the London tournament?
It was, I
Five?
believe, 500, 508 players or something, just over under 500 players.
But some of those players had a stipend, I believe, from placing the top rankings of their specific regions, like top eight
Yes, they did.
APAC, for example.
Again, it's interesting to talk about the international because we don't actually have that much news on it yet. The post that announced that we would be having the international said that we would be getting more news at a later date. All we know is there is an international challenge. It's this weekend of March. It's at the Melbourne Park Function Centre. See you in a few months when we tell you the rest of it, basically.
Yeah, so
Well,
it's
you
sort of
guys
like
can
a teaser.
you guys can rest assured when we do get that information, we will make sure to tell all you guys.
We'll have a video dropping. We'll have a podcast that very week telling you everything you need to know about the international. I do hope that if we end up with some American listeners or some European listeners, some players from all over the world, that you can tune into us here at AceTrainer and especially on the OzCast to hear all about the international championships and the Australian scene going forward into 2017. The last thing I want to bring up with you guys about the international championship is the Pokemon TCG set Sun and Moon. We are going to be the testing of the entire Pokemon world. Sun and Moon will be legal for our international championships.
It'll
Yeah,
be
that's a
interesting.
big deal.
I think as long as there's no major American League Cups before our international that can have a Sun and Moon for it, we will yeah, be the first major tournament to have Sun and Moon legal.
And I think League Cups are kind of like, well, not glorified League Challenge. There, you might take less risky decks into a League Cup just because there are more points and more prizes on the line, but you'll still see people messing around with things that may not be at a bigger event because the London Internationals are quite likely, even if the turnout is over 200 or more people, we're still going to have a lot more rounds than a regular League Cup. So
I
they'll
think
want to take something
yeah,
consistent.
I think one thing that's going to be very very important for us in Australia and also all the Indonesian players coming over as well is there's a strong chance we'll actually have to play 2 days of Swiss just like they did in London. And I know Worlds separated, you have day one and day two, but like actual Swiss rounds split over into 2 days, I don't think any of us have ever played in that before.
No, I mean, it's not something that's usual in Australia,
It's
but
really going to test the endurance.
of course.
And it's something that if any American players come over, they'll have a good advantage over us on, despite being jet lagged. But if they come here a little bit earlier.
We have the benefit, of course, of only living a few hours away by plane from Melbourne and not 26 hours. But as you said, Alex, it is a very new feeling for Australian players, especially Australian players that haven't been to a World Championships or to a large scale event before. They're not going to be used to playing 13 rounds of Swiss over 2 days. They're going to be used to four, five, six, maybe 7 rounds of Swiss tournaments, and then if they make it to top eight, they make it. If they make it to top 16, they'll get points, but they don't have to play in the top eight anymore, and they can relax and hang out with their friends. It's a very new feeling for Australian players, and I think it will end up separating the top tier Australian players from everybody else.
For sure. And on a side note, I don't know how accurate this is. I think at London, there might have been another tournament on the Sunday, like a League Cup or something that was happening on the Sunday. I think I've heard rumors of a similar tiered event happening on our Sunday as well. Have you guys heard anything about that?
I know there was one in London. Yeah, they held LCs.
Yeah, so we could see. So even for people who might miss out on the top 8 cut, I think there may be extra events being held on that Sunday, so people can still keep playing throughout all 3 days, so that it doesn't feel like they've got Sunday, I guess, kind of wasted.
Well, it is good, yeah, because it makes it feel like Worlds, especially the best part of Worlds after the first day in 2015, they had the Boston Open. I thought that was a great idea.
Absolutely, and they had a whole bunch of side events too.
Hopefully we have something like that as well.
Yeah, so like we may find people doing drafts, or going. I mean, having a league cup or league challenges on the side would just be like a nice way to peter out the whole weekend, I think.
Were there supposed to be? I know we've started this podcast in December. Now we haven't started it back in September, October, when all the changes to the format were announced. But are there supposed to be specific special events, I believe they were called, that can be run on the second day of these big events that reward more points? We haven't actually seen any of them yet.
I think I heard something about that. Are you thinking of like last points challenges or something? I think it was something similar to that, like they had in I think it was maybe 2014 or 2015 Nationals in America, something
We
like
might see
that.
them closer to June and July then, if it's a last chance sort of thing.
Yeah, but I think it's mainly just like league challenges and league cups that might be held on the extra days when we don't have, I guess, 2, 3, 4, 500 people playing in the main event.
Well, guys, let's move off the international challenge for now. A lot of our podcasts in the future are going to be wrought with time on the international championships, and it's really nice to have a introduction to the international challenge and the international championship today. Let's move on, however. The next topic for us is going to be the international commentary. Not so much the tournament itself. We're going to move away from the tournament from Melbourne. We're going to talk now about the commentary surrounding the international challenge. Paul and myself were very lucky enough to cast the 2016 Australian National Championships, something that has not been done before in Australia. And we have seen the London International Championships was taken up by streamers and personalities over in the European region who have become popular in the last 6 months thanks to content, thanks to streaming events over in Europe. What do you guys think about the chances of Australian commentators at the Melbourne International?
I mean, I think it'd be a really incredible idea and scenario to have Australian commentators commentating the big event that's happening in the APAC region. I'm not too sure too much about other commentators or other content producers in the rest of APAC. I think there might be one from New Zealand, but I know that on our end, I think it'd be fantastic to have a few Australians actually get their voices heard on the matter, get a bit of, I guess, Australianism going for the tournament scene, because we are used to hearing a lot of these different overseas voices. We used to hear it in the guys from the UK, like Ross Gilbert, or I think David Hockman is one of the other guys as well from Europe, one of the big guys who commentates. So I think having that voice of Australia be heard by everyone else in the international scene would definitely bring a new impact and bring a new light to Australia.
I think it's a big slap in the face if they don't choose at least one. I think 2 is an acceptable number. Realistically, we all know each other. We know all the other fairly good players in Australia, and we know what all of our accomplishments are. But outside of our best players like Jordan and Brent and like Khan, who obviously made APAC last year for Worlds, and players like that who Jordan was just streamed in London. Not many other Australian players are known, or their accomplishments aren't well known. So if you go into a commentary booth, like if we have foreign commentators, they might not really know who these players are. I just hope that the stream because when they try and do stream matches, they obviously try and pick players that are well known to make it more interesting. But I think it'd be good if we at least had some sort of Australian players. So if there was an Australian player on stream that wasn't Jordan, they would actually be able to provide, a background into where they're from and what their accomplishments are. Like you said, Paul, I just think that it makes it a little bit more interesting. And if you watch the stream and you're not from Australia and you hear, an Australian talking, you go, "Oh, I know that accent. It's an Australian accent." Oh, okay.
It's a very distinct accent. So
Yeah, it is a distinct accent, but
you'd know
it makes it feel more like, I know it's an international challenge, but it sort of reinforces the fact that it's in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, I think that would be. I think it would be huge to have a few Australian commentators on there for the challenge. It would, like you said, it reinforced that fact, make people aware that Australia exists. We're definitely as a big part of the scene as well, and we definitely want to be involved further down the track. So,
well, I think if we weren't a big part of the scene, we wouldn't have the international challenge located in Australia.
I agree.
I think there was it was easier for it to also still be in Indonesia or Singapore.
What I think is the most important thing to remember about the commentary for the international is that this is now a world league. Pokemon has opened up the world to 4 huge international tournaments, 4 more than any previous year of competitive Pokemon. It is going to be very difficult for Pokemon to fly personalities and talent from all over the world to multiple countries in multiple times of the year just to commentate on players they may not know. What I would say to Pokemon, if they were listening, would be to give a chance to Australia to really prove itself and to make it worth Pokemon's while for giving us an international event. If streams come back to Australia, if streams happen in Australian regionals in the next few years, there are going to be people putting their hand up and to become personalities and to represent the scene in Australia. It is an absolute dream of mine to be a player like that. I know it's a dream of Paul's too. And
yeah, definitely.
if I could say anything to Pokemon, it would be give us a chance to prove that we're capable.
Definitely share your sentiment there, Bodhi.
All right, guys, we're going to go on to our next topic now. We may have another podcast before the end of the year, but this is something that I wanted to get from you guys. It is your favorite Pokemon TCG moment of 2016 in Australia. I'd like to start with Alex this time.
Mine's probably really biased. But, I really liked watching my brother win a regionals and earn his first ever invite for Masters, and being able to take him to Worlds this year. It was my second time, and I think because I definitely had the nerves at my first World Championships, and it was probably easy to tell, but this year was just way less stressful. I think I'd already phoned it in a little bit, and I was more concerned about making sure my brother had a really good time and a really good experience for his first Worlds. So that's probably my favourite moment. That's just biased though. I think it could be related to a lot of other people, not necessarily family, but if you have a couple of friends that come with you. I know sometimes, especially for the Sydney-Canberra double, for people that don't know, when the last couple of years, Sydney and Canberra have had regional championships on a Saturday and Sunday respectively, and people would fly into Canberra on the Saturday, or actually no, they'd fly in on the Friday, and play the tournament on the Saturday, and then drive down to Sydney on the Saturday night, and then play the Sydney Regional Championships on the Sunday. I remember a lot of players that I know personally would bring their friends that I didn't know, but who were like, "Oh, we just wanted to give it a crack, it's a weekend with the boys, and just having a fun weekend." But you're also playing a major tournament, and you get to see people like that. So I just go, "Wow, I didn't realize that many people played Pokemon trading card game in Australia." and played it this seriously as well. So I think as sort of like the chauffeur to our friends who might not play it as seriously as us, when we bring into big tournaments like that, you sort of get to watch them just go, wow, this is insane. I remember at Nationals, actually that's another thing. I think this year, well, it's still this year's, but last season's Nationals, there were a couple of guys from Perth who had gone with us, gone with Daniel Collins and Andrew and Kale and I, and it was their first Nationals, and just watching them play, you know, and we came back and be like, oh, I won the last round, you know, and they're getting all excited, and you just think to yourself, that was me, you know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It's really cool. It makes me feel really old, despite me being, I'm pretty sure, the youngest in Perth anyway, but just, it was really humbling.
It's really cool. That's like really thoughtful, you know, being there.
I'm just a big softie.
Oh, well, I can't deny that.
All right, Paul, hit us with your favorite moment of the Pokemon TCG in 2016.
Oh, geez, there's so many.
Oh, it's still for time, Paul.
Yeah, as always. Wouldn't be me without it. No, look.
I
guess I hope I don't steal Bodhi's thunder here. I don't know if he was going to do this, but before I go into my own special moment, I think there needs to be like a shout out to Jordan Palmer for like moments of 2016, winning 3 regional championships and the national championship as well. And it was like definitely the most competitive season Australia's seen, I feel. So
I think so many people get so hard on him, but he practices so hard. Like he deserves everything he gets. It's not like he just sits there and doesn't even play. Like while we're all like doing this thing, you know, doing a podcast or sitting there like looking at memes on Facebook, you know, like
that's really important.
That kid's sitting there and he's testing constantly. So it's no wonder he like does so well, and he did so well at London, and why he just destroyed everyone in APAC last year.
You haven't seen mine,
sure.
He is our best player in the country, like outright.
I will bring up Jordan in mine, but you haven't stolen mine. Keep going, my friend.
Fantastic. I guess it's like I said, there were a few. I guess my big one is seeing a whole bunch of guys from Sydney who had either been playing only a bit here and there, or have just come back this season, such as a close friend of ours, Jonathan Blair, like getting back to Worlds once again. So that was really cool, just seeing like a big group of us make it to the World Championships together. And you know, it's cool to see like the groups from the individual states like just make it all in one go, and then we all get to Worlds, and it's just like it's just a big massive party for Worlds. I mean, I know that at the City Championships, you Alex, you made it to top 4 in the Sydney in one of the Chatswood City Championships, and then your top 4 opponent happened to be playing actually, there we go. That's my moment. The guy who won the Chatswood City Championships was playing a Mega Sceptile deck, which back then was it was pretty unheard of. But yeah, but like that's the thing. On the day, I think there were about 60 or so players, and I think a bit more than a third of those players were playing Crobat variants. Yeah, like they're playing Crobat variants, and Mega Sceptile just has a field day with those. And I just thought, I've never seen this guy before. He's just sort of come out of the woodwork, playing a deck that he really likes, and it's just been the absolute most perfect meta call I've ever seen. And I think it was unintentional as well. I think he's just like gone in there.
Nah, because I sat there and I asked him, because I was like, oh, why did you play Sceptile? And he goes, oh, just because of the what's it called? Is it Theta Lock? No, what's it?
Theta Stop.
Theta Stop, thank you. Because I wanted because of Theta Stop, and he knew lots of people in the city just bats. They like to play bats. And that's why, because it just doesn't get hit by bats. And I said that's fair. And it's just ironic that majority of the people there with bats were the Cario bats, but I was playing Toad bats, so it like wrecked me even harder.
That's just like it's so crazy that happened. I mean, kudos to him for making that
I would have
call.
tilted more if he didn't give me that explanation. If he was just like, oh, I just really like Sceptile, I think I would have tilted off the face of the earth.
But to be fair, we did go and watch Zoolander afterwards, so I think a good time was had by all.
Yeah. I don't think anyone has scooped more like top cut matches than me this season. I scooped both cities.
Yeah, you had to fly out for the other one.
Top 4 and finals
Yeah.
for a movie
So
and a flight.
I think that was pretty cool, but I mean, I don't. This may also sound biased because this other moment involves myself, but at the Tasmanian Regional Championships, the very last one, and it was the first tournament that Fates Collide was legal, I played a Mew Durant deck because I thought to myself, I don't have my Worlds invite yet, but damn it, I just want to have fun. And so I played this deck, reviving the old mill that people had seen from the previous Durant from the Noble Victory set, but it was a little bit different. And I tell you what, I surprised a fair few people. And playing against one of the guys playing Whale Lord was also quite funny because he just sort of sat there and thought to himself, I can't win this because he's the aggressive mill and I sit here and do nothing. And then I played against Samir in top 8. Now, Samir's a really good player. I mean, he made it top 32 at London Internationals along with Brent and Jordan. So he's definitely got some good backing behind him. And he was playing Greninja, and I thought to myself, there's no way I can beat this guy. He's really good. He's playing a deck that should just dominate at what I'm playing at the moment. And that was really fun. It was just exciting, the match I had against him, because the mills were absolutely perfect. It was dirty, but it was absolutely perfect. And I don't know. It was just funny. And I remember telling Alex on the phone, I'm like, I made top 8, Alex. I got my invite. And he's like, oh, what were you playing? And I told him, and he laughed and he said, no, really, what are you playing? So anyway, enough about me. Bodhi, what's your big moment of this season?
Guys, we had a discussion earlier in this podcast about people playing weird decks at big events. Come on, Paul, playing Durant.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's there's stuff like that. Even in Australia, I think playing decks like that, because too many times we get such tunnel vision to what's meta, and we play out those sort of matchups in our head, but then we don't account for random stuff, and I think it sort of weeds out a lot of people because you sit there and you're like, oh, I'm just going to do my linear deck strategy that I do for most other matchups, and it should work, and then it doesn't work, and then you lose. Sometimes you have to sit there and take a deep breath and just read what their card does, even if you've never really looked at it before, seen it before, and go, okay, what are they trying to do? You know, like if you just sat there and I read Paul's Durant, I'd be like, okay, so he's going to mill me, so I probably shouldn't play the Sycamore in my hand and discard my whole hand. Because he's not actually doing damage. Like, I can just wait a couple turns.
Well,
Exactly right.
you can't really, you can't always predict what you're going to come up against, and that's why I would like to dedicate my top moment of Pokemon TCG for this year to Michael Kahn, who won back-to-back-to-back city championships with Night March Vespiquen, I believe.
Oh my gosh, how could I forget that? That was crazy.
Almost hitting his best finish limit in 4 consecutive city championships, just winning and winning and cutting and winning and
Didn't he
reaching.
get like 10 points shy of his world's invite off of those 4 city championships?
It would have been something ridiculous
You're like
that.
180.
Yeah,
Ah, there you go.
I believe he came first,
Top 4 and
third.
first.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how like he could play that, and then shortly after the first tournament, everyone in Tasmania should have been like, we should try and counter Michael, and then no one did, and he just did it again.
Michael Kahn is one of the best Australian players I have ever seen in my life. Top 4 of nationals this year, back-to-back city championships, very strong regionals performances as well. He's got a place in my heart forever, and that's why I dedicate my 2016 best moment to Michael.
Fair call. That is a definitely strong moment. I think it's also worth noting that him and Jordan basically played the one deck for basically the entire season. You know, Night March with Michael and the Seismitoad Bats deck with Jordan. Like, they just perfected their list and piloted through multiple different tournaments to top cuts and wins in both of their cases.
If it works, my friends. If it works,
Absolutely.
it works. Now, guys, this is going to bring us to the end of our very first episode of the OzCast for AceTrainer Australia. I want to thank you both very much for joining me this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure starting up this new project with you. I know we've been excited about it for a few days now, and it is Christmas Eve, so we're not going to keep each other for too long. But starting with Alex and then Paul, just tell everybody where they can find you, if you guys have any social media that they can find you on, and just thank you to anyone that listens to our podcast.
I don't have Twitter. I don't like Twitter. Like realistically, if anyone wants to contact me, you can just send me a message on Facebook. I told you my name. My name is Alexander Bray. Especially if there's anyone in Perth, Western Australia, and you want to end the league, just send us a message. I can forward you to our Facebook group where all the Perth competitive players goes on. And I would implore everyone else in Queensland to message Bodhi and in Sydney to message Paul for the same reasons. If I ever meet you at a tournament, you can come say hi, and I'll try not to swear too much.
You've kept it very well, Alex.
I know, I've been totally PG. I'm so proud.
Very proud of you, buddy. Couldn't be more proud.
All right,
This season hasn't started yet, so I'm not salty.
Give it time. Give it time, my friend. So I suppose on my end, very similar to Alex, I don't really have any other social media besides Facebook that I go with at this point. I never really caught on to Twitter, and I much prefer the character limit of infinity on Facebook because it allows me to express thoughts in a bit more depth than 140 characters or whatever it is on Twitter. And also, I'm not technologically savvy, so I'll probably end up taking like way too zoomed in selfies and accidentally uploading them to Twitter or something. But yeah, no, I mean, Facebook is my main port of call as far as checking messages. And yeah, if you ever need any help or if anyone ever wants to know anything about the Sydney scene, definitely hit me up. I can give you all there is to know on the matter. We haven't had too much of a league season at this point. I suppose it's just been slowly trickling towards bigger events. But yeah, just message me on Facebook and I'll respond when I can and help you out.
Thank you very much for that, fellas. Well, guys, like we said at the top of the show, my name is Bodhi Cutler. You can find me on Twitter at Bodhi. That's 3 H's at the end of it. I don't use Twitter all that much, but if I even get one follower from this, and might be worth it. Maybe I'll start tweeting some more things, especially play Pokemon related. I always tweet when I go to events. I always tweet when interesting news about the Pokemon trading card game comes out. So if you can follow me on Twitter, if you follow places like Poker Beach and Bulbapedia, they'll always have interesting information about the Pokemon trading card game on Twitter. If it is your social media site of choice, Bodhi Cutler on Facebook. Please feel free to message me if you are a Brisbane player, if you are a player from anywhere in the world that has questions about Australia, about the International Challenge. We are here for you. We are here to discuss anything that you can possibly think of. Guys, I want to thank you both very much for joining me this evening. Have a very Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Thanks for having us, Bodhi. You
Cheers.
Bye, guys.